Page number 6. Page number 6. Page number 28. 28.
Hello? Okay, sounds like we are all here. Welcome out there, whoever you are. And let me give you my email address. Oh, I need to turn this on. So you can contact me, and I can also send to you materials. This applies also to you here, right? I have lots of files or whatever. You can either ask for something in specifically, or you can also ask questions, and I will try to do my best. Let me just spell it out for you. It's lodro.sangpo, Lodro, period, Sangpo. I'm going to repeat it afterwards. At the @ kccl.ca. Again, Lodro, period, Sangpo, at kccl.ca. So the third talk, usually that's the time to give you a chance to ask questions or to comment on thing, complain, whatever. Anything you want to bring up? So we need a microphone for that. Okay.
So my question had...
Just one sec. Share.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
The other one?
The other one we discussed this morning.
You prefer that?
With the circle.
Okay.
Well, you passed it. I mean,
Which one?
it was the one with the three objects and then the subject and...
Oh, this one. That's the confusing thing about terms. You say charts, and I understand something completely different. And I thought I was so right about it.
You were.
Okay, this one.
That's it.
Okay.
Could you elaborate more on, okay, I understand the subject 1A, or the big bubble, subject 1, is me, right?
Yep.
Who are subject 2 and subject 3?
Oh, your favorite enemy.
Oh.
Your favorite friend.
Okay.
It could be anything. The idea is just like subject 2 and 3. Object 1, 2, 3 does not compare. Right. So we have, if you have an object, you either like it, dislike it, or neutral. Those are your three main options. There's actually nothing outside of it because you have three kinds of feelings. That's why we mentioned, that's why the second skandha was separated out. It usually should be included in the fourth skandha. Also, the third skandha should be included in the fourth skandha because they are all mental events. But they were separated out because they say that at the root of samsara is basically the feelings. That is what gets it started. They look very innocently feeling. But you know, feelings you cannot really escape. You already have taken a side, right? So if you do not like something, it's not so easy. Oh no, I'm gonna love you over that kind of thing, right? Sorry. Okay.
Okay. I'm still wondering why they're included in this.
Which what
subject
the
three and
subjects?
subject two, yeah.
You usually do not get jealous in regards to an object,
Oh, okay, so.
right?
Okay, so now we're talking about jealousy and pride, right? Or
Definitely yes, and they are comparative. Pride means I'm better than you, right? Pride could also mean if you are on equal level with the other one, you could say, oh, I'm better than you. If you actually lower than them and say, oh, I'm actually equal to you, right? There are 9 different kinds of pride. And so the key point is like, as soon as you are subject or a person perceiving an object, there are certain options which existentially you have to deal with. There are possibilities. And the simple one is because you have feelings, you do not have a choice over. Feelings are already there, right? You maybe can influence what happens in the next moment, right? But in the moment when you have a feeling, it's already there. You cannot really do anything much about it. So, but it will determine the direction your mind moves. And just feelings are powerful. And also, that's me, right? And I always use the phrase, he or she hurt my feelings, you know. Feelings look like a really big deal for us. It's actually just a temporary, momentary thing. It's there are lots of them, right? And okay, is that clear? So my main point was, when you look at the mandala, how many mandalas there? You walk into a shrine room, which gate do you usually enter? Usually it's the east gate, right? And then, or when you take an abhisheka, usually it starts with the east gate, then you go to the south, then you go to the west, then you go to the north. That means, hey, I'm receiving abhisheka in regards to anger. I receive instructions in regards to pride, right? When I go to Ratna family, the yellow, if you look up there, they're the colors, right? The colors represent our kleshas, but in a transformed way. They are then transformed into wisdoms, right? But mainly they are here to tell you, I will, in the Abhisheka section, you are reminded you have these kleshas, and that's your path. However, in the Vajrayana, the kleshas are not necessarily negative news. They say like, you would not want to give up on them because, I give you an example, a very sneaky one. Occasionally in monasteries we get exhausted, we work really, really hard. And then we come up with the idea, I'm exhausted, right? And so, and sometimes I just, sometimes I do not understand that. It's just another moment. Even if you're exhausted, it's just another moment, right? But that's mostly more easy to say. So there was at some point a person who did a real good job in saying, I'm exhausted. And then I said something like, why? Whatever. He said, I'm exhausted, right? And so then she was out of energy. Then I decided to make her angry. I just said a few things and she got really angry. And then and I said, oh, are you still exhausted? You seem to be perfectly energetic to have being angry at me. And at that point she started to smile, right? And her whole exhaustion thing was gone. Does not mean every exhaustion is like this, right? But I'm just saying, these states, from a Vajrayana point of view, the kleshas are no longer negative news. They are invitations. And for example, if you would give up on them, anger, man, it's creative, it's powerful, and how many things can you do? It's misdirected, yes, but it's a very powerful state. And first of all, you cannot really give it up. Your mind has the possibility for anger. The only thing what you can do about them, you can see the shortcomings or the faults of it, but you want to use the energy, right? Artists often use, or dancers, in every movie you see about dancing, someone gets upset, something goes wrong, and then what does the instructor say? Use the energy. And often then that is a breakthrough for people, right? But so basically, we move today, we will discuss abandoning the klesha, where we have this feeling, klesha are trouble. We need to do something about it. And that's very realistic, right? And it's very safe, right? You abandon the klesha and replace it with good qualities, right? Or you return to seeing things as they truly are. So, but there is the tendency, you want to make it go away. And there are good reasons for it to do so. But it also means you have given up on yourself. Is that clear? Usually, the anger is your own mind, right? You basically say to yourself, oh, there's something in myself which I really should cut out, right? But it's your own mind. So therefore, it's a good stepping stone, right? To say, no, we calm it down so that I get in a more open perspective, bigger perspective, right? But then, and for certain, let's say it like this. I jumped ahead a little bit, but I think it's good. One form of abandoning is, and it pretty much most of the time works, you have an argument with someone, right? And if it's a partner, for example, very likely you do not have this argument for the first time. Right? So each time when you have I'm not sure about you Asian people, whether you have arguments with your partner, but we Westerners, we love doing that, right? Okay, just teasing there a little bit. But in any way, so basically, you come to a point where there's a disagreement and no one gives in. Everyone puts down their feet and then you have a disagreement. And we have done that before, and sometimes it gets worse from there, right? So that basically then, what is one form of abandonment? You simply say, let me take a walk. So then you walk away and you come back to the house and say, oh, sorry, I exaggerated. Maybe both sides say, right? And then sometimes that's a good thing because it prevented a worse situation, right? So, but that's considered to be one form of abandonment, and it's a very safe one. Everyone can do that. You don't need to have a very thorough training in your mind, right? And so that's one way. You simply say, or ideally speaking, psychology would say, look, honey, right now we're both in a tough space. Why don't we talk tomorrow about it? Because when You walk out of a disagreement, the other person says, you always do that. You walk away, you don't deal with things, right? And I cannot let you get away with it, right? But when you say to this person, I know I'm in a tight spot, and I see you're in a tight spot, and we have an issue, but right now it's not. We're not in a good space, but we acknowledge there's something to talk about. Let's do it tomorrow. And then usually everyone, for whatever strange reason, whether it happens or not, doesn't really matter. But everyone is calmed down a little bit and comes to their senses. So that is a form of abandonment, but there are different ways of doing it. Psychology is basically says you need to acknowledge that you have a problem and you're willing to deal with it. And often the next day you come back and you have no idea why you had a disagreement, right? Or you have a real disagreement, right? There's no guarantee, but in any way it gives enough space. So that's one form of abandonment. And where you basically have an interest to have the klesha go away. Let me just throw it out while we're already in here. So I give you the overview. That is what you do, for example, in shamatha practice, right? You follow your out-breath. The instructions we received from Trungpa Rinpoche, you follow your out-breath, you go out with the out-breath, you let your mind goes out with the out-breath, and then it naturally returns, and you do another out-breath. And the phrase we use, let your mind go out with the out-breath and dissolve into space. Which of the working with kleshas, let's, for example, let my negative mind go out with the out-breath and into space. Which of the four one is? We have abandoning, remedying, transforming, and I guess it's abandoning, right? You let go. You see the thought as a problem, and you basically let go, and you literally think the problem goes out. It's ridiculous, but you think, visualize that the problem goes out through your nostrils and goes literally away from you. You think you are relieved of this one, right? So what you basically there do, you let go of the hanging on to this thought of regenerating it. It is there, you acknowledge it is there, and you consider it to be a problem, and then you let it go with the out-breath. Now, this is one way of doing the shamatha. The other way is interesting. You are not angry. You have a good mind. So let your mind go out with the out-breath and dissolve in the space. What do you do there? You could look at it, let my wisdom mind or my compassion go out in the out-breath and dissolve into space. The same technique could be either a way to deal with a problem, or it could be a way of sharing your inner qualities with others, right? Okay, so one would be an enrichment and the other one would be a pacification, right? And sometimes we also talk about pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, and destroying. So there are different strategies, right? Where were we?
You answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this one is just simply like all kleshas are fit into these 5 situations. It's either a direct relationship with something without comparing. You either like something, dislike it. There's no comparing. It's just based on a feeling. And that's we have all the time. You have in the next minute maybe 100 different feelings. It's lots. You're constantly, if it's not a strong feeling, we might say, no, I don't have any feelings, but you have a neutral feeling, right? That's also a feeling. And you're constantly directed in a certain direction. And basically feeling leads to action, to activity, right? And we will get into that a little bit. And the other option is, yes, it's a reality, there are different people, and you start comparing yourself, and then you're either better, or you think you make yourself bigger than you really are, right? Or more important than you really are. There are lots. The Dalai Lama at some point said, you know, if you look in the world, there's me, and out there are millions of people. Who is more important? The Dalai Lama, a million people? Dalai Lama, a million people? It's not a question, right? But we usually think we are the most important thing, and that can also be a very good thing. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. If, for example, we think I can really help, I have good ideas, but you know, in general in Buddhism, the notion of I is neither positive nor negative, right? We usually often say that ego is just negative, but in the Loric teachings or in the basic fundamental teachings, it always pointed out it's just a label, it's an I, right? And I can do good practice, compassionate. I can go into the shrine room to practice, or I can go into some bar, get drunk, and lose my mind. It's open, right? Ego is not particularly negative, but ego can be quite negative, of course, right? Okay, so maybe one more question, and then we can. Today we have 2 hours, so. We should be able. Good question. Anyone? And maybe let's just first see. Yeah.
Can you expand more on subject A, 1A and B as well?
Yes, that will come up in a little while.
Oh.
We haven't talked about what kleshas are yet, right? And so this will come up. Why don't we do it right now? Okay? Okay. Can we pass this one out? Oops. The klesha parts, not the one with the picture, the other one.
The kleshas.
There are 2 pages on kleshas. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what we're doing right now, we pass out a hard copy, and you will see actually what is passed out. And I can send a PDF file of it to you. Okay, so maybe let me do this. Let me do a brief, quick presentation, And and then you have this paper. In general, this kind of paper, they come out of the Abhidharma Kosha and other texts. And this can sound sometimes a little technical. So therefore, I would like to talk you briefly through it so that you do not get lost into the technical language. But they basically provide pith instructions, what is important. So in other words, like this, I only put it in there because I think knowing that will help you to having a certainty about what we are really dealing with when we deal with kleshas. And we already mentioned today, we no longer think at this point, well, maybe a little bit, that the kleshas are only a problem. Now suddenly we move, kleshas are an opportunity, right? Right. But we only talk about kleshas are an opportunity if we have seen that they are a problem too, right? Right. But they are not only a problem. So sometimes we call this making friends with yourself. The kleshas are yourself. If you have a problem with them, you have a problem with yourself, right? And no one wants to have a problem with themselves if it's avoidable. So, and also from the other point of view, because we all, in spite that we all have completely different minds and personalities and all those things, right? We also have a lot in common, right? And so it's always a balance, but we usually say we have all the same Buddha nature, right? And occasionally I walk around in a city and see all the beggars or the police people or the people who work in shops, and I go, they all have the same Buddha nature? That's unbelievable. The Buddha nature can manifest in millions and billions of ways, right? But still, there are certain things they have in common. Every Buddha nature, Tathagata Garbha, whatever you want to call it, has an object, for example. Anyone has certain causes and conditions, works together with certain factors. So there's a lot of commonality there. But because it's our own mind, we can say, well, we need to keep our mind in check because I have old habits and they're still strong in me, right? And so until I have purified or reworked them in some way, it might be safer to just follow a certain level of what we call discipline, right? That's why you take certain commitments, not to kill and not to steal and all those things. I'm about to tell you a horrible story. Maybe I shouldn't, but now I have to. I asked one stronger Rinpoche because we had lots of people who wanted to become monastics, and I wanted to know what do we tell them to inspire them, right? And then he said, well, you take the precepts not to kill, not to steal, and not to lie. And I was somewhat bored with it, all right? And he noticed. This was not the answer I expected. I expected something more glamorous, right? And, but I said, okay, that is good, but that's not why I became a monk, you know? It's sort of like, I wanted to use the opportunity to get enlightened or whatever, something like that. And then a year, 1 or 2 years later, he was giving to the whole community to talk about monasticism and why to become a monastic. Right? And then so he brought up the issue and said, now why do we become monastics? And then he said, it's because I am free. I can do what I want. I wake up in the morning and do not need to check with my wife or my children. I do not know to go to work. I'm free. I can do what I want. This is the kind of answer I was looking for, right? The positive opportunity. And one person in the second monastic seminar we had in 1986, he defined Vinaya as the principle of maximizing the potential of the moment. Something I signed up right away to. So this is, in other words, you have a positive language, but you need also a protective language. And Trungpa Rinpoche's logic was, whenever you're not stealing, whenever you're not killing, from then onwards, you will never have to deal again with the negative effects of killing in your whole life. So you're free, it frees up energy, right? And so in other words, I do not want to be misunderstood. I'm not saying kleshas are simply just all good, right? In their nature, potential in terms of their energy, yes, right? But we also need to start out on a realistic basis that first we have some kind of decorum where we get along with each other, some kind of decency, and which allows us to feel secure enough to open up to the creative, the full potential. Right? Okay, so where were we here? There was, you asked, right? Sorry, what was the question again? Oh, yes. And then I said, we're going to go over the kleshas, right? Yeah. So maybe let me address this. And I'm just going to do a quick run through without going too much through the text, but I also want to introduce you to the text so that you can slowly read it. Lama Zangpo said it would be good if people would read the materials which we printed out for you in your spare time or when you get home or whatever. Right? But I wanted you to see it in a perspective. So here it says, consequently, the root of existence, that is to say, of rebirth and of action of karma, are the kleshas. So in the Abhidharma Kosha, we talk first about the truth of the first noble truth. The second noble truth is summed up with kleshas and karma. Those are the two main causes of suffering. Is that? Okay. So basically here in chapter 5, which is about the kleshas, and chapter 4 was karma in the Abhidharma Kosha, right? It basically says, we have said in chapter 4, the world and its environment arises out of karma, right? Collective karma and personal karma. A lot could be said about this. So, but in any way, kleshas are not just kleshas. Kleshas lead to action. That's the problem. The occurrence of the klesha in your mind might not be a big problem. Or it would be a much more manageable problem because it could just come and go as all thoughts, right? But the problem with the kleshas is they lead to action. And therefore, the next question is then, how do we define the kleshas? And we already brought this up. So I will give you two definitions, right? One from the Avatara, which is a Hinayana text, but a wonderful text about providing definitions. The nature of the mind and the individual factors are just great. And then the other one is from the Abhidharma Samuccaya, a Mahayana text. And The other one I prefer, but here we go. Defilements or kleshas are named because they perturb and afflict your 5 skandhas. The psychophysical series refers to the 5 skandhas, to your being. You could say defilements are thus named because they perturb and afflict your body, speech, and mind. They have a perturbing, disturbing effect. They get you out of balance. And these defilements are none other than the anushaya. There are many synonyms for klesha. Anushaya is one of it. And Tibetan, which I mispronounced yesterday, unless I'm from a different area, is tra-kye, right?
Chagi.
Tra-kye. Isn't there somewhere where they say tra-kye? No? In Kham or somewhere?
Yeah, Kham. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Depending on the region of the Tibet.
God, I was not completely wrong. Okay. And that means a subtle increaser. That term is very helpful. And as we'll see, kleshas, they do not come full-blown from the beginning. They are just mental events like a feeling. They are very momentary, like everything in our mind. So if you would see them as momentary, it would really not a big deal. It would let they come and go. That's it. Next thing come and go. Next it, come and go, come and go. But when they arise, they start small and quickly get big, and then they regenerate each other in such a quick succession that they really come like big, strong. Sorry? I have trouble hearing. Oh, you did. Sorry, I have some hearing problem. Yeah, okay. Okay. So we have here different names for it, and you find them in the literature. But now we want to go to another definition, and you don't have that. I'm just going to read it out to you. An affliction is defined as that which renders the body and mind afflicted or restless. Klesha is defined as that which renders the body and mind afflicted or restless. And a mental factor makes the body and mind unpeaceful. And now I give you a German interpretation of this. What is rest or peaceful? The peace in German, freedom. Peace is the same word as freedom in German. So when your mind is peaceful, it's free to its full potential. So the point is here, if the mind is not peaceful, there has to be some aspect in your mind which thinks, I have not fully realized my full potential yet. And we call this suffering. There are 3 kinds of suffering. One is the suffering of change, and suffering of being conditioned. The suffering of suffering we're not talking about here so much, right? Even though it includes certain kleshas like hatred are clear suffering of suffering. But attachment or happiness is more also suffering in the Buddhist world, but it's not a suffering of suffering, it's a suffering of change. So we all know we are happy, how long does it gonna last, right? but then they are also the suffering of being conditioned. And in the text they say only the arhats, or not the arhats, the saints who are on the first bhumi are able to experience that kind of suffering. It's very subtle. It's something where you're conditioned and you cannot really say it's suffering, but you have not found the peace and the satisfaction which is inherent in your Buddha nature, so to speak, right? So therefore, I like as a reference point, what does a klesha do? When you say it's not peaceful, it creates non-peace. That could mean suffering of change, but it also would include, as soon as you have not fully experienced your full nature of the mind, you will not be satisfied. And this is, by the way, one of the points of the Uttara Tantra, which says, we start out with a feeling of something is missing, sometimes described. It's very subtle, you cannot really say what it is. Like you cannot say, I cut myself or something like that. But somehow the Buddha nature has the capacity of going beyond any form of suffering, not just the suffering or whatever. So therefore, I like this definition here, because it basically encourages you not to settle down on going to Sobeys and getting what you want. You know, do you have Sobeys here? No. Going to the supermarket. In Nova Scotia, we have Sobeys. Going to the supermarket, getting your chocolate and say, that's a good life. And then you ask Canadians, how are you? Oh, I'm great. I'm great. I once asked the cashier in Nova Scotia, it was really funny, talked with people and said, and it was the end of her day, and said, how are you doing? And she said, I'm living the dream. So we talk about a fundamental, why did the Buddha leave the palace? He had everything. And his child just got born. And why did he leave the palace? That's a fundamental sense of suffering, something, I'm not liberated yet. Not everyone suffers from that, right? In any way, so now we have a sense, it's some kind of coarse level disturbance, or a more subtle one. There's one saying by Dorjen, man can handle a lot of suffering, but only a little happiness. I like that. I greatly like that. So most people would say happiness is not a problem, but happiness you're still worrying about how long does it last, and the slightest little change is, now it's gonna, and so on. Okay, let's go back to this page here. The term which is used for the chapter in the Abhidhammakosha is anushaya. It means a proclivity, and it's synonymous with kleshas. But anu means subtle. You can read along, right? It's a pseudo-etymology interpretation of anu, stressing the difficulty in detecting the arising of the defilements which are subtle in nature. We mentioned that before. The klesha usually does not barge in full-blown. It sneaks. It is a minute one of the 46 factors. It's just one of them. How come that this factor is so powerful, right? How does it? So let's see how this happens. Now the other thing is number 2. Anubandhu means it binds you. Some people say, oh, I just had a pleasure effect. Can you not just forget that I lost let's just move on, right? Oh, nothing happened. It was a temporary upheaval, right? But we have to see that every klesha activity has some kind of repercussion. That's one of the problems with the klesha. It's not simply just a single moment. As every mental mind is a cause, and because it's a klesha, it has the power to sow a seed in your subconscious to maybe to repeat in the future more quickly, because you already have done it, or that, all kind of things. But we should not be thinking that kleshas are just, it's just a thought and it didn't really matter, right? So that's one point. Then, we go to the next page. Now I get to your question, all right? They grow or become intensified. Why? Now, basically we have a klesha which is subtle. Now we are given why they get strong. And what does it say? They become nourished by the objects they take and the thought concomitants with which they are conjoined. We discussed this yesterday a little bit. We need an object, and now when we look at this one chart, there was the klesha and its associated factors, right? So basically, the klesha gets only strong if it's supported by additional factors. It alone would be just a flimsy little thought which doesn't have any power. It needs a support system. Like any factor, also good factors need a support system. And you get supported by the objects or by the people you spend time with. And whenever you join with people, it can be either supportive or the opposite, right? And so that's the object, but you also need to have a memory. Kleshas would not work really well if you would not have a memory of something similar happening in the past. You have already done it, so it's so easy. It's like a ride, very familiar. So these 2 points. Okay. So these 2 points are most crucial when we work with a klesha. If we know the klesha itself is not so much the problem, only when it has a conducive object, right? Anger really cannot really work when you have angry at someone and the person doesn't fight and argue back. It can be very annoying for the anger. It's just like, come on, I need a partner to fight against, right? And so we get at the klesha, or the 4 ways of working with kleshas. The first one, abandoning, mainly works with the object, right? And I give you, for example, a simple example there. First of all, the 4 ways of working with kleshas, they come from a text by Karma Chakme, The Mountain Teachings. And Khenpo Karthar was teaching a lot about it. And Gendun Rinpoche gave teachings many, many years ago. It's called the Peacock. It's the Peacock something. I will look up the title. And it's marvelous. It's really all what you need in order to do your meditation practice. So he abandons he basically uses abandoning like actually realizing that this klesha will have real negative effect, as tempting it might sound. I need to give it up because even if I'm thrilled by it, because it will have a negative effect and it will lead to that I will suffer. So that's the kind of abandonment. You basically have something and you really want to do it, but you know each time I have this in the past, it got worse and I just ended up suffering. Drinking, for example, is an easy one. Some people lose their mind when they drink. I think my mind got peaceful actually when I drank. But this was so long ago, you know, just like, when it was German wine, maybe it was the German wine quality. But in any way, that was a sidestep. I look at abandoning differently, and I give it a positive twist. When I look, I know a klesha needs a suitable object, and let's take aggression, it's very easy. Aggression needs to be something negative in, let's say, a person, right? And so I focus just on the negative one. You know, the person usually, if it's a friend, right, and I have a fight with him, I get angry with him, then I just will dish out the negative aspects and point that out. You are always like this. You speak in a way which is hurtful, or whatever I come up with, right? I abandon the limited view on just focusing on the negative. For me, this is a positive approach. In German, we have the word Verzicht for means abandoning, and it actually means to point in a direction. And Verzicht is sort of like not only that you give something up, but it points you in a better direction. So for me, abandonment is only convincing, it really points me in a better direction. And the better direction is very clearly, a person is not only negative, particularly if they are friends. So all what I do when I feel angry or something like that, you know, I remember also the good things. It's a very simple thing. And for right now, I just want to do a little exercise, because I'm not going linear today, right? We still have to talk about prajna, by the way. That should have come first, but we can do it also in this way. I want you to think about a fight you had with someone. I hope no one has a problem not finding an example. But I want you to bring up the feeling of being angry with something where you think, I am right and they are wrong, and that kind of thing. And I want you to see what are you doing when you're angry with this person? Is it really true that you mostly just focus on the negative? It is, of course, true. That's a simple thing. But that doesn't help you, because when you have the anger, you feel you're right? And so I want you just to neutrally step back and say, how does a klesha function? Right? What does a klesha do in order to have the klesha? So think about a fight you had with someone, an argument, and it doesn't really matter. The person is not in the room. You can give up or can give in. You say, no, actually, if the person is not there, I'm very open to that possibility. But if the person would be there, I would never say this because then I lose the battle, right? So right now, just think about the situation and look at it step by step. How do you talk to that person? How is that done being angry? I give you about 1 minute. And look at not just one moment. You have an argument. It goes on for 5 minutes. Do you repeat saying the same thing again? Do you remember additional arguments where they did the same thing? Or what did you do? And then I will ask you one question to change one component, and I will ask you, if we change that component, does the anger literally either diminish or does it go away? Okay. So start out with getting angry, but not at me, please. Yeah. Try. Okay. Now, it could be a person you usually do not like much, right? But then think that this person is a father to children and a loving father. Just assume that and bring that. Will that change your anger? Try to visualize, try to feel it, right? And just see what happens with your anger. Does it affect your anger, the intensity of it, or even make it go away? If it's a partner, then it's easier just simply remember why you love that person or bring in this situation. We change the object, right? We make it more bigger, more true to how the person truly is. We're not, okay, try that for a minute and just see the impact it has by changing the object. Okay. Bring up another situation. Let's say another person you're angry with. Anger is just very easy to deal with. Different person, and this time you do not change the object. You change your own mind. You are aware, let me remember, let me use a different memory of the person. You're not changing the person, you just actively change your mind. Right? For example, you could do, you hate the person, and you remember where you loved the person, or you generate a moment of loving that person. Does that change the anger? So you really get angry? And look how anger works. It's just by focusing on the negative. We change it by you actively sending out love to the person. Does it make your anger go away or diminish? Okay, so I think it's pretty straightforward. I just want to take a little time, because if we do not, we just know the right answer, but we do not walk away from, oh yes, this really works. And the next time, maybe here it's artificial, right? But the next time you are angry at someone, do I have the power? For example, you could see this person and say, I'm seeing you right now. I can make the choice. I turn around and look at something else or do something else. Does it change anything, your relationship? Very likely it does. So you have the power, the willpower to change how you see the object. Now, you do not want to suppress what is wrong. That would not work either. Do you get it? If the other person is doing something wrong, it's still wrong. The problem is they are not only always doing something wrong. That part is your own projection onto the person. And in this way, we work with the first abandoning and with the remedying. So the remedying, the abandoning sees I abandon a limited view on the other person. I allow this person to be present in my mind in a way which is closer to the truth than just focusing on the negative aspect. That's working with abandoning and works with the object. And most Hinayana practices work with the object in order to overcome the klesha. That's their main strategy, and it's the most stable one. You don't need all that much skill for it. It's very straightforward. Why? For example, when you have a perception of an object and you look at the object is very stable. So if you project the object as having positive and negative qualities, the anger no longer has a basis to be angry. It becomes something else. It maybe becomes dissatisfied with the person today. You say, honey, today you did this like this. No, I really didn't like it. That's completely fine. As soon as you say you're always like this, you're in trouble, right? So basically, those are two strategies. And now, interesting enough, we can work with a klesha by looking at the klesha itself. At this point, did we look at the klesha itself? No. We just looked at the object. We did not deal with the klesha itself, right? Did we look at love and compassion? When I generate love and compassion, do I look directly at the klesha? No. I just generate a different mind factor which cannot coexist with the anger, but I still haven't looked at the anger itself. And that's what you do in Tonglen practice. Remember Tonglen? You take on all negativity and sending out the positivity. Why would you be so crazy to take on the negativity? Who in their right mind would take it all in? I mean, that's really a little strange. It would be strange if that would be the only truth, if it would be as solid as we make it. But we know that everything is momentary or empty, we call it, or empty of solidity, of this big continuity. Therefore, when you take it on, you not get sick by it because you see it in its true nature, right? So you can therefore take it on. You can take on the suffering of other people and their suffering. They think it's a real solidified, permanent, powerful thing. But you as an outsider look at it, oh, this is just a momentary projection within your mind. Therefore, you can easily take it on without having to worry that you yourself get sick. Because you see its momentary, flimsy nature, and you can handle that. You can put it in perspective. The other person cannot. And then what do? We send out love and compassion which cannot coexist with anger. I still haven't looked at the anger itself. We haven't made use of the anger. We only changed the support system, right? Anger cannot coexist with love. If I remember love and feel it, you cannot have anger and love at the same time. It will diminish it greatly or maybe go. You can have them one after the other real quickly, but those are two fairly safe strategies. You don't need too much profound insight here. Now we come to the third one. Transforming. So the abandoning is mainly a Hinayana teaching, mainly working with the object, a very safe method. This pretty much always works. Working with replacing certain mental factors with love and compassion, that takes more skill because your entire being says, no, I'm just angry. But because you see it as being momentary, right, and not such a big deal, it's just one occurring and the other. And in fact, it cannot coexist as long as I visualize sending out love. In this very moment, the anger cannot arise. A moment later, yes, okay, but as long as you project it. So this is how Tonglen works. So Tonglen is set up that we are generating minds which do not allow klesha mind to occur. And it's also a little bit more, you're not approaching the anger, oh, you're all only just bad. There are some problems, but they are not as solid as originally you thought, right? So now we come to the third one. And the third one, transformation. How we do that? That's the first time where we invite and look directly at the anger. So far, we just looked at the object and at the support system. Now we look directly at the anger. Are you as solid as you think you are? And then you try to find the anger. Where is the solidity of it? I had once an encounter with Trungpa Rinpoche many years ago. And I asked him a question. I was thinking about becoming a monk, but I did not want to publicly talk about it. I basically said, look, how do you make an important decision? You know, something which will change your life. Shouldn't there be a spot somewhere in your heart where you say, that's the place I'm really sure about. There it should be clear, and I said I cannot find it. And but what should I be doing to find this spot which is so clear and solid? And the Trungpa Rinpoche did not speak any English there. And the translator started to translate the question and then started laughing. And he laughed for 5 minutes. He could not translate the question. He was a monk, right? He could not translate the question. I just sit there. And while this happened, like Trungpa Rinpoche looked at me and he tried to figure out what's the question. But the person could not translate the question. It took them literally 5 minutes to calm down. And I sit there and just say, what's going on? What's wrong? This is a really serious question. I want to become a monk. And it should be a solid place in myself. Right? And then Trungpa Rinpoche looked at me and I thought he would get bored with it. And I thought he was looking at someone behind me. So I turned around. There was no one behind me. I just felt like X-rayed and and then the translator finally managed to ask the question. And then Trungpa Rinpoche said, it just looks like some experience of emptiness. And I got why the translator had to laugh. I mean, we're Buddhists. We know there is no solid self anywhere. It's just not there. If you ask this as a Buddhist, it just doesn't make any sense, right? And so that's in regards to solidity. Nevertheless, when it comes to kleshas, we think they're really the solid things. But when you try finding it, as I tried, it slips through your fingers. You cannot really find that solidity, how the kleshas appear to you, right? And so basically, therefore, here we come into yidam practice. We know that our true nature is luminosity, emptiness, right? Right? And we remember the emptiness or momentary quality of the klesha. The klesha appears like solidified. As long as it occurs, I can either look at the object or the support system, or I can look at the klesha itself. Where are you? Right? So, and then you do not find it. And it slips through your fingers. You cannot find it. And in the Mahamudra teachings, they say that the non-finding is the finding. Right? And what else is? Does this mean that the non-finding is nothing? And the Mahamudra teachings say, no, it's not a dark emptiness or a blankness. The luminous emptiness experience, it's luminous. There is an appearance occurring along, and therefore we, in order to give this non-finding luminous quality a shape that we can relate with, what do? We visualize ourselves as a yidam. Right? When we visualize ourselves as a yidam, we know that the visualization is not solid. Why? Because most people I know, whenever they try to visualize, they say, oh, my visualization is not strong enough, it goes away. So they ask any possible Tibetan Lama, how can I make my visualizing stronger? And actually, the fact that your visualization goes away, that's the good message. It's not solid like in the solidified permanent way. The visualization, when we visualize ourselves as I hear you visualize yourself as Padmasambhava, right? You are usually not confused that's a visualization, right? And you're not thinking really, oh, this is a Padmasambhava of the 8th century, and he's here, I'm that. I think usually, let's hope, or maybe, you get my point. So we visualize ourselves in a luminous, empty form, which does not have the solidity of the klesha. We replace the energy of the kleshas and give it the form of Padmasambhava or Tara or Vajrayogini. So we rise, we do not waste the energy of passion. We give passion its creative, luminous form. So whenever we do visualization, we usually do not get confused about that the visualization is not a visualization. And some people complain about it, my visualization is not strong enough. I think it's a good news that it is not solidified, because we do not need another super ego to replace a solidified version of our kleshas. Is that roughly clear? So in the third transforming, I transform the actual klesha energy and give it the form of the yidam. Now the yidam has certain shapes which does not remind us of ourselves. The yidam usually deliberately looks different than we are, because we do not want to solidify our own version. We take on a form which is quite different from our habitual way of running our world. So that's the essence of the visualization. The main point of visualization is not whether it has one head, two heads, 4 arms, 2 arms. That doesn't matter too much. What matters is that you see it as a luminous, empty form. You realize it's a visualization. And remember, this morning, we, for example, looked at objects, and we usually think that the objects are separate from ourselves. In the visualization, the visualized objects, is it a front visualization? Is it separate from our mind? We have usually a self-visualization or front visualization, right? Is it clear? When I visualize a front visualization, is this outside of my mind or inside of my mind? It's inside of my mind. It's part of my visualization. Do I get confused about whether it's my own visualization, or do I really think, oh, now it's something separate out there? Which one is it? Do I get confused when I visualize something in front? Do I really think now what I see is separate from myself? It's occurring within my mind, right? So when we do a visualization practice, for example, front visualization, we train our mind that the object is within my mind. A visualization does usually not get confused about that, right? So therefore, when we visualize ourselves as a yidam or visualize a front visualization, we do not get confused to think that what we visualize is actually the world separate from ourselves. So usually when you look at me, you think that the shrine is something separate from you, right? And now we're going to do one little exercise. Okay, now be careful with that. Take off your glasses if you have glasses. And be careful with this. Right now, for example, we see one image, right? I hope, unless you have eye problems, you might see 2 images. What I will do, I push my eyeball slightly in, just slightly, don't push it out. What do you see? Just press a little bit against the eyeball. Keep both eyes open. What do you see? What? Two of me? You see two of me, right? So now I ask, which one is the real one? Which of the two images, I'm supposed to be one wall out there, one Zangpa out there. Suddenly you see two. My question to you is, which of the two is the real one and which one is the confused one? So this basically says, an optometrist would tell you whatever we see is not outside. It's just a projection in your mind, in your brain, right? So that's actually, scientifically speaking, the simple fact, whatever we see right now is actually a projection of my mind, but we think I actually see the thing out there. Because I think there's something out there, my mind either likes this, dislikes it, or whatever. Now, if I'm aware that the object, the world out there is within my mind, do I get upset with myself? No, I have a connection with the world. I care about the world. That would be the normal response. Okay. Now you think we're all going in a crazy direction, right? But kleshas have two aspects. One big klesha is about duality. The main klesha is to think, the ignorance that you think the world out there is completely separate from you, the perceiver. If we start realizing that whatever we experience is like a visualization world, we get closer to how reality is, right? Oh boy, what did I do right now? For example, right now you open your eyes and what do you see? Do you see a single person or do you see a whole field in front of you? Oh, the wholeness. And it's outside of you, or where, if it's outside of you, where does the outside start and where does the inside start? Can you find there's outside and there's inside? Where is the borderline? Sure? Why? Yes, if there would be a borderline, you would see it and say it's there, but you cannot really, wherever it gets closer and closer. So that's what visualization is about. Visualization tries to habituate ourselves that the world we perceive is not outside, completely separate from ourselves. Now the question is, does that mean that it's completely my mind, or is there a difference between perceiver and perceived? That's an old discussion, right? But for right now, we could say mind is that which is clear, aware of an object, is not as innocent as it is. It's suggesting to you that what we perceive is actually closer to us. I'm actually connected. It's actually occurring within my mind. And Siklinde, what you see is completely different what I see, and what you see is completely different. That's the reality. Nevertheless, we think we're all in the same room, and we're all part of something outside. We're actually not. Whatever you experience, whatever you, Susan, right? Whatever Susan experiences, I will never ever be able to be you. You are in a different spot, located at a different place. Everyone in the room is in a different location, and every one of you has a different world. And because it's your world, it's no one else's world, You're the only one who can acknowledge it. If you're not acknowledging as such, no one will ever see it. But if you open up and appreciate it, there's so many things. At least it's my world and no one else sees it. So we keep our mind open, and in Yidam practice, we see everything transformed into a beautiful palace or into something slightly different than what we are habitually used to. That is in order to train ourselves that the duality we experience is actually doesn't have any real basis. You cannot really find it. Okay. So what we do, transforming, everyone is doing Padmasambhava practice? Lama Zangpo, you said everyone is doing Padmasambhava practice? Most?
Anyone?
How many of you people do a visualization where you see yourself as a deity or as a Guru Rinpoche? No one? Oh. Kamapakshi? Okay. Maybe you clarify, but you know them better.
What do you want me to say?
Basically what I want to suggest to you, right now, be yourself, and then feel the anger, and then transform yourself into Padmasambhava, for example, or Vajrayogini, or Tara, or whatever you do. And I want you to experience, when I describe this process, what it's geared towards, what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to transform your habitual, klesha-influenced world into a different world which is actually closer to the truth, right, than your present dualistic world where you walk around and it really doesn't matter what's happening over there. If you walk around and see, this is my world, actually it's me what I'm seeing, right, then you get curious. You want to rearrange it, maybe clean it up a little bit or whatever. And there was one movie which maybe share. There was a little cafeteria and people were leaving their dishes there. And then the owner comes in and sees some dishes on the table and so said, you're not cleaning this up, to someone else. And the other person says, no, I didn't put it there. And then the owner said, and that's a reason for you not to clean it up? It's your world, right? Whatever we are living in, if we see that we connected to this world and we see it occurs within my mind, of course we do not need a reason why we should take care of it, right? This is clear? When you see that you actually connected with your family or whatever, you do not need a logic why you love them. You don't. It's your world. And so basically, that's actually whatever you experience, oddly enough, is only your unique world. And the transformation makes this explicit, right? You visualize everything a little bit in a transformed way by using the energy of the kleshas and whatever is there. Okay. Maybe let's move on one step. Then we have the last one, which is self-liberation. What we do is to first run through the 4 ways of abandoning, and I try to present it in a particular logic so that you can recreate it once you do your practice. So the first one, we work with the object of the klesha. The second one, Tonglen, we generate mental factors like love and compassion, patience, while generating them, and they cannot coexist with anger or with a klesha. That's one way of dealing with it, but we are not directly looking and using the energy of the klesha yet, right? We just look at the support system and the object. And so basically that's what we do when we practice. We either work with the objects or with the support system, or in the Vajrayana, we do not say that the kleshas are only negative. But we still want to transform them. We want to transform the energy into its true nature. That means it's my world. Right now, my world looks gorgeous. It's just like this shrine room. It's not like outside. This shrine room is geared towards that every little detail is geared towards generating an awake aspect from within your mind. This is actually fairly close. Look, there are 4 directions, right? There's an east, south, west, and north, right? And this is fairly close to how the Chakkasamara Palace, it even is at the top. So when you enter here, you work with all kleshas, 4, passion, aggression, pride, passion, and jealousy, and ignorance, right? And whatever you see here is actually just encouraging you just to do that. So here you do not need to visualize much. When I came in here, I just thought, wow. And then I remembered that all these teachers were there, and I really was humbled, and this is overwhelming. Now, you come in here regularly. I don't, right? So for me, it's much easier. But we talk at home about this temple. You have to be aware of it, right? When everyone says, yeah, did you see the Tongpa Rinpoche's temple in Vancouver? You are here on a regular basis. So basically that's transforming. So we use the energy of the klesha, and because kleshas are powerful factors, they can quickly get strong and powerful. So we want to use that power and not throw it away by giving it up, abandoning or whatever. And the last one, so basically, do you know the terms kierim and tsokrim? Utpatikrama, Sampanakrama? Developing stage and completion stage? Developing stage is where you develop visualizing yourself as a deity, right? And the completion stage is where you dissolve this visualization into luminous, empty mind, which doesn't have arms and legs, into Mahamudra, basically. Now, if you realize that the energy of the klesha itself is actually not negative, it's only when it's not seen properly in its true nature, then it becomes a problem. Then suddenly you have when you see that's actually the energy itself, you remind yourself by visualizing yourself as a deity, yes, even the kleshas are not hopeless. The kleshas actually, they say that you need the power of the kleshas in order to become fully enlightened. You cannot do without it. You would not achieve full enlightenment. You would still have the division between the good and the bad, and still have a split world. Now, let's assume you recognize this experience you have which now includes the kleshas as no longer enemies. So when they occur and you bring your awareness that everything, you are in touch with your awareness, and the klesha arises within that, and you see it immediately as luminous, empty, or momentary, then there's nothing to transform, nothing to do. The klesha is then just an embellishment of your state of mind. That's the ultimate experience, right? And that's in many respects not that easy to realize, of course. It's easy to misunderstand. You could say, no, we can leave things just as they are. We're not saying that, right? Okay, so this is the main outline of the four ways of working with the kleshas. How late is it? Oh, we still have 20 minutes. Are there any questions in regard to this? I know this is a big thing. If you hear this the first time, right? And when you hear it the second time and the third time, it's still a big thing. This is a big thing. But so basically you have the four ways, and at the beginning you look at like the kleshas as they are a problem and only a problem. You need to free yourself. With Tonglen, you are so, hey, let's make friends, let's have some tea, let's chat it out. And then you discover yourself that you have certain qualities in your mind and are not only the kleshas, you are a mix of good qualities and a klesha potential. And then we get finally, once we see that potential, that the kleshas can be used, they are not truly solidified existing. That's why the monk could laugh his head off. There is nothing existing. How can you even possibly think about it? It's really funny. He did not laugh at me, by the way. He did not. It was a genuine awakening laughter. And so basically we have those three steps. Now I ask you one question. Which of the four is the best? It sounds like a trick question, right? There is no best. If you're lucky, you can use any of them whenever it's suitable. Sometimes abandoning, it's the way to do, right? It is safe to do. And sometimes when you're in a more confident state, abandoning is sort of like you are attacked by the klesha. It comes over you, right? And remedying is, it comes up, but you're like at least equally strong, right? The first one feels like your mind is being taken over by irregular behavior, right? The second one, you feel a little bit more confidence. You say, no, I have Buddha nature. I'm not only my kleshas, Yeah, they occur, but, it's a game. Sometimes they get stronger, sometimes I'm stronger or whatever. It's a negotiation, right? And the third one is a confidence, certainty. You know, I never found out so far a permanent, solid, independent entity anywhere. And that non-finding is actually certainty. That's a finding. Once you have that, we need to get used to that new world. And then we slowly can relax it, and then we do not even need to visualize ourselves as anything anymore. And that's then actually where we end up with Mahamudra and Dzogchen. Okay, I'm going to switch to a different topic, which I need in order to complete the first 3 talks, and it will go quick. Hope. Let me just talk you through. There's a text, I have it, but I do not want to go through it. I'm just going to talk. So basically, the Abhidharma Kosha says there's one factor which is most crucial in order to free your mind from suffering. What's the most powerful tool? It is prajna, right? Or wisdom, you could say, right? There is also something like samadhi, but what samadhi is doing, it can decrease the level, the 9 levels of the kleshas. It can make it weaker, the klesha, but it cannot eliminate it. The samadhi has the power to reduce the intensity of the kleshas, but it cannot make it go away. Right? That only prajna can do. So let me briefly talk about what we mean by prajna. Right? By the way, I'm aware I'm giving these talks because they're recorded, and then you can listen it to again and again. And I'm in the same group. I listen sometimes to myself, what I was saying in order to get deeper into it. It's a little weird, but this is an area where repetition and reminding ourselves is important. So what is prajna? We know it's the good thing, right? That's the savior. The definition of prajna is the discernment of dharmas. That's the definition given in the Abhidharma Kosha. Dharmas are the 75 factors. Those are 75 dharmas. Those are, prajna discerns all 75 factors in regards to what they are. It's very clear, it knows what their nature is. And it also knows what their function is. So, what do we mean by nature? Now, this again is another big thing, but I'm just bringing it in so that you can hear it and slowly get used to it. But this is much easier to understand. Nature has 2 characteristics. One is specific characteristic and common characteristic. A specific characteristic, each of the 75 dharmas, which we have on the list, has a different specific characteristic, right? A feeling is not mindfulness. A conceptualization is not passion. Passion is not aggression. So the 75 factors each have a very unique characteristics they do not share with any other of the factors. They are separate. It makes it distinct and unique. Then there are also common characteristics. And that means that, for example, a feeling is impermanent. It is momentary. What about aggression? It is momentary or permanent? Momentary. What about aggression? Aggression, passion? Momentary. So the common characteristics is shared by 72 of the 75 factors. They are all momentary, all impermanent. Now, crucial point, and that's really important for you to know. Question. When we get on the first bhumi, on the path of seeing, where for the first time we see reality as it are, how do we get there? Is it by seeing the specific characteristic or the common characteristic? How do you get on the first bhumi? When you see the first noble truth, the 5 skandhas, do we clarify the specific characteristic and then get on the bhumi, or do we clarify the common characteristic and get in the bhumi? That's a good question, right? Any idea? Any money? Someone wants to bet on it? Let's say like this. You usually would think it's a specific characteristic. But the specific characteristic is red is, for example, a color, right? Red is red and red is not blue, right? Blue is never red and red is never blue. Blue is never a feeling, feeling is never an ideation, and so on. Do we get confused about that? Can that be the main cause of our suffering? No. And now we come to one point. It's the common characteristics we mess up. Okay. And I'm going to show you now. They're basically, in regards to the Four Noble Truths, there are 16 characteristics which are common, shared with other factors, right? We mess up in regards to the first Noble Truth. Let me bring up come on, you can do it. Here. I'm going to read out. To cure people who nourish the view of permanence, the aspect of impermanence is established. To cure people who nourish the view of bliss, the aspect of suffering is established. To cure people who nourish the view of I, the aspect of empty is established. To cure people who nourish the view of mind, possessing, the aspect of not self is established. So they say, when you realize these 4 qualities, impermanence or momentariness, suffering, and empty and not self, that those apply to all the 75 factors, 72 factors, sorry. So if you correct the misunderstanding that whatever appears, everything seems to have a continuity, some little level of permanence. If you, for example, would see that your entire world is momentary, you would not need to think about what object do I need, what associated factor. All I need to solve is realize momentariness. Then everything, the reason it has to be simple. So when you get on the first bhumi, you realize in an intuitive, non-conceptualized way that everything is momentary. Once everything is momentary, then kleshas have no really handle to grasp onto things. So the other kleshas will also be remedied in this way. So therefore, One more thing. We asked Khenpo Sotram about, usually we talk about emptiness, right? In the Buddhist world, everything is empty, that will lead you. The prajna, which realizes emptiness, will lead you to enlightenment. Khenpo Sotram said momentariness is very close. They are not much difference. Now, we want to look what momentariness is, talk a little bit about that. And actually, just hold on, look right now. Now, that moment is already gone, right? Yeah, just be here. Don't do anything. Is there a permanence, or does it feel like you're riding a wave? You're not doing anything, you just... If everything is momentary, you do not need to make it momentary. And they use here the term impermanence, right? And they define it a little bit like something which arises, endures a little bit, and perishes. Then, at the time of the Buddha did not teach momentariness. He taught impermanence. And impermanence could mean I'm born, and then I live a life, and then I get old, and all those. This would be impermanence. He did not want to go into too many small things. Now, the later schools, they asked, what is impermanence? And they said, well, we cut, the present is what happens. And so the question is, how long is the present? And some people say it's like a 65th of a finger snap done by a strong man. It's the 65th. That's a moment. And then some other school, the Sautrantikas, came along and asked, what's the 65th? Why is it not even smaller than that? And so then what they did, they ended up saying, as soon as something arises, it already has ceased. It's like a 0 point. So in other words, whenever it has some extension, your mind can say, I can make it small, I can make it small. So basically, then we end up in this moment as right now, right? It's so quick. Let's say you have a problem. Think of your problem. Oh, it's already gone. If you have a problem, you cannot do anything about because it's already gone, right? And when it's there, you're not ready yet forever, right? So we move in something which we need to let go of any conceptuality. However, this momentariness is some kind of, it's not a nothing. Is that clear? Right now, for example, we are in the moment. Is it a darkness, or there's still all these appearances, right? Is it? So, understanding what is the most transformative experience is prajna, which understands momentariness and understands emptiness also, the 4 characteristics. Whatever of the skandhas they look at, it's all, I personally do not use the term magical or whatever, right? I need to work on it until basically in the empty, then that's what I mean. Momentariness, I don't need to figure it out. It's intuitive. So let's, for example, open our eyes and not do anything. Is there a world there you're perceiving, or is you are there, right? You experience yourself. Can you make the world go away? No? I mean, the world has nothing to do with you, so you should be able to only there once, there is no repeat. And that's what they call in the end, by the way, bliss. Bliss is not bliss does not repeat. Bliss is happy to be where your mind is. It does not compare. And bliss is some kind of peace which doesn't compare. But it's fully, it's a whole world, and it's fascinating. Actually, when I talk, I still can't believe that I see this whole backdrop there. It's like, for me, it's just like, it's just gorgeous. And you have a great support system here. It's just all these reminders. Okay, let's share the merit. By this merit, may I obtain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great East, may the lotus garden of awakened wisdom, may the dark ignorance of sentient being be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound brilliant glory.
Dedication page number 217. Page number 217.
Thank you. Now forget about the whole thing. Let it come to you and just throw it out.